name's Suzanne Price. I'm the founder of a chain of natural and organic children's boutiques called Sprout San Francisco. We have stores in 3 cities and an e-commerce store. We opened 10 years ago next week, but I wanted to tell you about some of the journey that led to this. So a little over 10 years ago, I was actually working at an investment bank, and I was focused on the green living, organic consumer industry, which I started focusing on because it was a trend out there we wanted to capitalize on at the bank. And through that process, I learned about these amazing companies that were creating better products because of all the truly terrible toxins that were out there in our environment. Many of them in consumer products, many of them in baby products, and really having the potential to harm the development of our children. So then around that time, I started thinking about getting pregnant, and I totally freaked out. I know too much. I know all these terrible things that are in products. Where am I going to find safer products? How am I going to know what's truly safe? It's very hard to get information. There should be a place where you can go and know that everything's been vetted and everything's safe. So I looked around for it and it didn't exist, and I thought, I should probably create this. But I really had a dilemma because I actually really liked my job. I was making decent money. I was good at what I did, and I went out for lunch with a friend around that time who said to me, close your eyes and picture waking up for work 10 years from now, doing your current job or whatever the natural progression of that will be in 10 years. And then take a minute and picture yourself waking up in 10 years, going to work doing what you imagine that you'll create. When I really thought about it that way, there was no choice. I had to do it. Because we all have bad days, we all have, no matter what you're doing, days that you don't want to go to work, and what was going to get me out of bed those mornings, what was going to keep me motivated. And for me, it was this injustice I saw out there, that we were being handed products that are perfectly legal that could harm us and our children, and I felt this need to do something about it. And I felt that if I was pursuing that dream, if I was doing something I knew was right, that would keep me going when times were tough. So just a few notes, somewhat of a sidetrack from the business angle here, but just a few notes on why I'm doing what I'm doing and what is really wrong in our environment right now that is not a natural evolution. So between 1975 and 2004, brain cancer in children increased by nearly 40%, and leukemia in children has increased by over 60%. Childhood obesity has more than doubled in the past 10 years. Asthma has more than doubled since 1980. Girls get their first periods today, on average, a few months earlier than girls did 40 years ago, but they develop breasts 1 to 2 years earlier than they did 40 years ago. It is not a natural evolutionary progression. And having 2 young daughters myself, this is one that scares me the most. 20 years ago, a woman's lifetime risk of getting breast cancer was 1 in 20. Before that, 40 years ago, it was 1 in 40. Today, there's a 1 in 8 chance that every woman will get breast cancer. Something is wrong, not just in products, in diet, and lifestyle, in our environment, but it's not natural what's going on. So what we decided to do was create a trusted resource at Sprout, that we would do a tremendous amount of research to find out what are the toxins that you've heard about, what are the toxins that you haven't yet heard about, and make sure that those were not in any of the products that we were selling. I love doing this kind of research. We have a scientific advisory board, and we're on top of all the new things coming up. Everyone knows about BPA, but you might not yet know about BPS, BPF, BPAF, and BPZ, which are also in a lot of BPA-free products now, which are equally, if not more harmful than BPA. So we do a tremendous amount of research so that we know you can come to our store and know everything's safe. We also provide a lot of education if you want to know more. If you don't want to know more, just come and know that we've looked into it for you. And that trust that we've developed with our customers has kept them loyal over the years. As trends change, as there's always a hot new product or a hot new influencer in the baby space to be buying what they're showing or what they're selling, people do keep coming back to us because they know in the end that they can trust what we have. And to keep that trust, we've had to make a lot of tough choices. We've sometimes had to make choices that in the short term we think might actually hurt our business and our sales numbers in order to maintain that relationship with the customer. Just a quick quote from a customer, I don't need to read you. Now, if any of you have kids, please raise your hand if you have Sophie, or maybe multiple Sophies. Sophie's the most popular baby product of all time, pretty much. and it touts all natural rubber, non-toxic, most healthy product, and back when we first opened, Sophie was our #1 selling product. We sold more Sophies than any other SKU in the store combined, and we gave it to every person as the go-to baby product. Then in 2012, I read some obscure blog article about how some stores in Germany were having to pull Sophie off the shelves. So I did this research and found out that a new EU law had been introduced that teethers, or any toy that baby would likely be sucking on, had to have less than 0.1 milligrams per kilogram of nitrosatable substances, which is a substance that's commonly added to rubber to make it soft. The US has no such law on nitrosatable substances. The US agencies I've talked to have never heard of the term nitrosatable substances, but what that is something that turns into nitrosamine once it's in the gut, and nitrosamine is cancer causing, and we do have laws against nitrosamine. So this 0.1 number was the new EU law, so I asked for testing data from Sophie's manufacturers. And they sent me testing data, and it said, nitrosatable substances, 0.5. And I said, well, this is concerning. There's a new law that says 0.1 is the limit. This says 0.5. And the sales rep in the US said, no, this is very complicated science. You're just not understanding it. So, well, I understand that 0.5 is higher than 0.1. So please ask the manufacturer, well, what does this mean? Are you not in compliance? So then they sent me a new test, which had a 6 months later date from the lab that said nitrosatable substances, 0.05 milligrams per kilogram. So I said, was the prior test wrong, or did the formulation change to meet the new law? And they said the formulation changed. So I said, okay, great, thank you. And the hundreds of Sophies that I have in stock in my 5 stores, what's their date, before or after the change? And they said, well, we'll have to look into that. I sent them barcodes, I sent them all the dates of my purchase orders, and I assumed that since the US had no such law, that all the old product was being funneled through the US. So I said, I need to know, and I'd like you to switch it out for me for the new product. And I got a response that just from a lawyer that said, we will sue you if you defame Sophie's name. So people ask me all the time now, what do you think about the Sophies today? Are they okay? They probably are. I'm not telling you all to go home and throw out your Sophies, but I lost trust in that company, and I learned to ask tougher questions, and we had hundreds of Sophies that I just had to throw away, sadly. I didn't believe in donating them and giving them to people who couldn't afford toys when I decided they weren't okay to be sold in my own stores, so we just had to get rid of them. And it was a tough call, because I know people wanted that toy anyway, and we're just going somewhere else to buy it. Another similar example, a little older if you have new kids, but Orbit Baby Strollers, anyone familiar with that brand? About 10 years ago, it was the hot stroller brand. It was on The Office, all the celebrities had it, and it was our #1 car seat and stroller that we sold because they made a big deal about no harmful flame retardants, and we were very concerned about the flame retardants in car seats. And we love this partnership. They were the only car seat company even talking about flame retardants, and of course their foam came from China, so there was a number of steps removed, but they assured us they had all the testing data, and this was the safest foam out there in terms of flame retardants. So we had this event at my San Francisco store. We had the world expert on flame retardant chemicals come and speak about this issue, and we had the founder of Orbit Baby Stroller come and speak as well, because we believed they were the best out there. And she turned to him and said, what exact chemical are you using to meet the flame retardancy standards of car seats if you're not using the worst ones? And he said, oh, that's proprietary, I wouldn't answer her. And I didn't really know all the chemicals, didn't really know to ask that question, but it concerned me. So I cut out a piece of my own Orbit Baby foam from my own kid's car seat and sent it to a lab at Duke University where they were testing for flame retardants. And the #1 worst, which anyone can do for free, by the way, at Duke, they have a program for that. And the #1 worst flame retardant is Tris, and the Orbit Baby car seat had that in it. Now, I believe the founder was deceived by his vendor and wasn't trying to lead people astray, but here we were touting that this was the safest car seat, and we had to admit we were wrong. We had to tell our customers we're really embarrassed, we didn't ask as deep questions as we should, and we have to refund anyone that wants to get their money back, because we felt really bad about it, and that really hurt us for that period of time, and we learned a lot. We learned to ask tougher questions.